So it's now just after 10:15 in the morning on Saturday, the 28th of November 2020. Last night on Irish television on RTE1, there was a programme, The Late Late Toy Show. Now, that, like so many things in the country today, has evolved into something quite different from what it originally was. That's because The Late Late Show itself has evolved into something quite different from what it originally was. Gay Byrne retired around 1999 or 2000 from both presenting and, people don't realise so much, producing The Late Late Show. It was never a great show. I mean, it was always could be very, very dull. But one of the things that people would respect Gay for was that in his capacity as the producer of The Late Late, he was absolutely insistent on setting his own agenda. Those around him said he could have had more courage even when dealing with senior management in RTE. But Gay was able to deal with them, and he was able to, stand his ground with things. When the Anne Lovett thing exploded in the middle of the 1980s, he used his radio show to expose terrible abuse that had been going on under the counter in Middle Ireland. And what Gay did on the radio show with Anne Lovett was he just sat back and let the story tell itself. And he deserves eternal praise for that. Gay was courageous. He had a certain Mrs. Carmody quality to him. Ryan Tubridy has none of these things. Ryan Tubridy is the presenter of The Late Late Show now. He's not the producer. Maybe that's merciful. Who knows? Ryan Tubridy is a distillation of everything wrong with RTE. Utterly talentless. He got in because of connections. He's been one of those kind of heads who gets into RTE when they're really, really young and just rises his way up. Another one is Doireann Garrahy. They're at the same time, and Garrahy is being, you can see the agenda with RTE, she's now being pushed as their next big star. The fact that there's no talent or ability or original thought is probably an advantage for them. As an aside, there's another TV station in Ireland that we don't hear that much about, called TG Cahir. TG Cahir is a brand name given by Television na Gaeilge to its mainstream channel that broadcasts primarily through the medium of Irish. People don't realise something. In 2009, TG Cahir and its parent group, Television na Gaeilge, were separated from RTE. They were formally separated from RTE in 2009. Before then, they had been kind of a subdivision of the broader RTE family. And that was very important, and now 11 years later we're seeing the benefits of it, because when TG Cahir got separated from RTE, that meant they got their own Director General, their own board, but more importantly at a national level and in the eyes of the state, TG Cahir is a semi-state broadcaster with equal weight to RTE and equal clout. I don't think they get the licence fee. I don't think TG Cahir gets a share of the licence fee. They absolutely should. They should get the whole thing. TG Cahir should. They'd spend it properly. TG Cahir doesn't produce programmes. It only commissions them from independent producers, which is why their production standards are so much higher than anything you'll see on RTE, and why they're able to spend money much more efficiently. TG Cahir have stopped saying Fanawalya, stay at home. They've stopped all the COVID-19 bullshit. Moreover, they have their own news department. So Nuacht TG Cahir is done in their studios down in Galway. It's not done in Dublin. When TG Cahir was set up, it was set up cynically. You must remember that. It was set up cynically by Michael D. Higgins, who I have absolutely no time for. And he made sure that TG Cahir was based in his own constituency. It was real pork barrel stuff that Higgins did. But if only by accident, we've ended up now with a semi-state broadcaster there, which isn't based in Dublin, which isn't part of RTE, and which sets its own agenda totally. There's a really good channel, TG Cahir. RTE has been driving my parents insane. So I'm now insisting that if the telly's on, it's on TG Cahir. Their news is better. As I said, they do their own news down in Ballynow and in Galway. Their broadcast centre is a really nice, purpose-built studio centre in the middle of the Connemara Gaeltacht. It's out in the countryside, out at the sea, and it's in a beautiful location. And it brings home the point that geography matters. RTE is based in Dublin 4, so you have these posh ministers like Murphy, who knows that he can just pick up the phone and the Bros in Montrose will get him. He can get into the ministerial car and get over to RTE to do, a press release, because that's all it is, to do some publicity for the government and the establishment, and RTE will have him on air in half an hour. It's not so easy to get into the ministerial car and get down to bloody Galway, where it's 200 miles west of Dublin. So that's what gives them their geographical edge. They set their own agenda. Their drama series, they've a soap opera called Russ na Rún. It's really funny. It's really, really entertaining to watch Russ na Rún. They show archive material from RTE. They show their own music programmes. They're streets ahead of anything on RTE. As for our independent channel, Virgin Media One, well, the least said sooner forgotten. All that is a reproduction of trashy, sealess crap from the UK and the US. But they're a private station, so they're not subsidised, so they can set their own agenda. They can do what they want. But, I wouldn't even put Virgin Media One on the radar. They should lose their franchise because they're not making programmes. I mean, the reason why we're supposed to have an independent broadcaster in the state is to compete with RTE. They don't. And the same talking heads who go on RTE to talk about COVID, the coronavirus scare and all this, they get on Virgin Media One and they're given the same degree of sycophantic audience. So they're not doing their job. They're not competing with RTE. They're not trying to set a separate narrative. TG Cahir is doing that. TG Cahir, it's interesting. I wouldn't rule out the possibility that within 5 years from now, our main public service broadcaster will be TG Cahir and not RTE. That's certainly the way the trends are going. Because there's great confidence and very high morale down in Galway in TG Cahir. Very high morale, and it's a low-staffed organisation. TG Cahir itself only commissions on broadcasts programmes, so it uses material from independent producers. It doesn't make its own stuff apart from the news. So they're not overstaffed the way RTE is. I had a laugh at that scandal regarding those RTE newsreaders. They were having a party to say goodbye to a colleague who was retiring, and the colleague was a woman called Phil Collins, not the baldy drummer in Genesis. And this woman, Phil Collins, who was retiring from RTE, was the reception manager. Reception manager. I wonder what that job is, a reception manager. So they have a reception and they need somebody there to hold their hand. So you look at a hotel, for example, in the private sector, not state subsidised the way RTE is. And they have a reception with 2 or 3 women who are maybe men who work in the reception, dealing with residents, dealing with phone calls. Do they have a reception manager? Is there a person whose job is to manage their... In other words, what does a reception manager do? She does the rosters. So that's what this woman in RTE was doing. Now, RTE being RTE, this reception manager would have been on a fully permanent, well-salaried job with all of the perks, sick leave and holiday and all of that kind of thing, and now she goes off to a gilt-edged pension. That's RTE. That's not the way TG Cahir work. I wonder, do they have a reception manager, Fistracon Banishtor, in TG Cahir? I won't speculate about that one because I think I hardly need to. Anyway, getting back to point, the toy show was on last night. The toy show got started back in the dark ages when Gay presented the Late Late Show, and what would happen would be, as Thomas Sheridan accurately described it, it was marketing. It was plugging of people's toys and products and that kind of thing. It is a relic of an age when there wasn't very much advertising, when there was very narrow media in this country, when the majority of people, particularly outside of the East Coast where we could, and the borderlands where we could get the British television, they relied on RTE. Up to the end of the 1970s, there was only one RTE channel. There was RTE. 78, then they started RTE2, which was shite from start to finish. Shite from start to finish. I remember the start of RTE2, and all they were doing was just showing programmes from... It was basically a repeats channel, RTE2. The idea that was the moment at which the government, if they had one iota of courage, should have set up a separate broadcaster. Either another semi-state or an independent not at all. They gave RTE another fucking channel. Of course they did. Of course they did. So just, 2 opportunities to look at all the shite from Montrose. So, anyway, the toy show is a relic of when there was 1 or maybe 2 RTE channels, and when a lot of people, particularly outside of the East Coast and outside of the borderlands only could rely on RTE. So the toy show was an opportunity for parents to watch toys that were being marketed, or new ideas, or educational things for kids. It kind of fitted broadly in that loose assways way that RTE do it, into the notion of, enlightened products that you might buy to help literacy or to help numeracy with children. In that regard, it was innocent. There was nothing questionable or in any way untoward about it. Nowadays, we're bombarded with multimedia left, right and centre. We're bombarded with shops like Lidl and Aldi, which sell high quality toys for children at a low price. We're bombarded with Amazon, where you can also get stuff for kids at good material for kids at a low price. So the need for the toy show is simply not there anymore. The need for the Late Late Show is simply not there anymore either. And when Gay retired in 1999 or 2000, that's when the Late Late Show should have been retired as well. Of course, RTE, being RTE, wouldn't do shit like that. They wouldn't do shit like that. No. Taking a decisive stance and saying, well, we'll be courageous here and cull this at this stage. No, RTE, they'll just keep on with the same old drivel. So Pat Kenny took over the Late Late Show. He wasn't bad, Pat Kenny. It's only in more recent years I've seen what an objectionable person Pat Kenny really is in person. Ask his neighbours. But then Ryan Tubridy took over the Late Late Show, and he's just absolutely dire on the Late Late Show. But he's a dire broadcaster. The Emperor has no clothes. He's the Leo Varadkar of broadcasting. That Emperor has no clothes as well. And you can big him up as much as you want, and you can say how great he is and all the rest of it. But the reality is that both of them are inadequate. Tubridy, one of Tubridy's main problems is that he's essentially a superficial individual. People who have met Tubridy in person in the shops, that kind of thing, say he's polite and friendly. Okay, so he's not an arrogant prick. He's not a diva with people in person. I'll accept that. Gay Byrne could be much more difficult to deal with in person. There are many stories of how unpleasant Gay Byrne could be in real life when he'd encounter people, whereas when people encounter Ryan Tubridy, they always say that he's polite and he gives people their time, and that's fair enough, and I respect that. That does deserve to be respected. But the reality is that as a broadcaster, Ryan Tubridy's useless. And one of the features of Tubridy is that he's essentially very facile. He's superficial, he's glib, and also he lacks courage. I remember one time looking at something with Ryan Tubridy very briefly, and a row started with that absolute legend, Linda Martin. Linda Martin's great. I'm a big fan of Linda Martin. Linda Martin completely goes off script when it suits her. A bit like Twink, actually. Linda Martin's one of these Irish showbiz characters. I remember Linda Martin did Eurovision in '84 and came second to a song that was a piece of shite from Sweden, and I was heartbroken for her. She went back again then in '92 and won. And I just, nice one, Linda. I have a lot of time for Linda Martin because, as I said, she's her own woman. She speaks her mind and panders to nobody. But a row started with Linda Martin. I think Louis Walsh and Linda Martin. And Louis Walsh and Linda Martin know each other donkey's years. So these are two old fucking colleagues who know each other. And this Barney started between Linda Martin and Louis Walsh. And Tubridy then intervenes and he looks all scared. He looked all afraid because they were, it turned nasty. And these are much older people than him who've used to shit like this. Where, a good broadcaster who's in charge of a live show would stand back and allow the fun to happen. That's what live television's about. Look at the Tube in the 1980s. They loved all that kind of shit in the Tube. They stood back and allowed the magic to happen. That's the magic of live television, and that's why Tubridy lacks that magic. Totally lacks that magic. You don't have to be good looking, which Tubridy isn't, but you do have to be charismatic. You do have to understand the magic of live television. Tubridy doesn't. But as long as we have Virgin Media One piling out shite like I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, with no commitment on their part to actually competing with RTE and doing stuff to attack RTE, then this will continue. The toy show, though, we have to look closer what the toy show is all about. Because I didn't watch it because I'd rather die. I'd rather die than watch a pile of manure like that. But in the Gay Byrne days of the toy show, Gay would be talking to people who would be making in some instances, they would have hand-produced quite nice stuff. People would be selling things. It was, as Thomas Sheridan said, it was a plug. And then occasionally, once or twice during the toy show in the Gay Byrne days, there'd be a musical interlude with the Billy Barry kids, and they'd do a showbiz number. You're never fully dressed without a smile or something like that. And again, it was all right. There was nothing offensive about it, but it has morphed an awful lot to being, in effect, a 3-hour children's television show broadcast late at night, in which the kids are now dominating the thing. And Tubridy goes around dressed in stupid fucking costumes, looking like a plank. And moreover, apparently, because I didn't watch it, and I'm going now on second-hand information from Twitter, but I would actually rely upon what people are saying. I think what they're saying is either right or wrong. First of all, the child was talking about the benefits of vaccine, and then a 12-year-old, or maybe younger than that, was singing a song about the way you touch me. Now, that's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. That's the sexualization of children. That is. And certainly in the Gay Byrne Billy Barry kid days, they didn't do that. The Billy Barry kids are very professional performers. They always got a lot of stick, but they're actually really good at what they did, the Billy Barry kids. Very slick, well-rehearsed kids who enjoyed what they were doing. I think it was very positive what the Billy Barry kids did and what they taught them in the Billy Barry school. They had a very strong reputation for professionalism. The Billy Barrys would do pantomimes as well. They'd do TV shows, and they were very good. They were very, very good at what they did. The good singers, good dancers. They were positive. There was nothing wrong with what Billy Barry kids did. But the Late Late Show, that's not the Late Late Show now, or the toy show now. That's not what it is now. It appears to be, first of all, a narrative based upon allowing these kids just to dictate the whole thing, and secondly, coming out with material of an adult nature, which is by no means suitable for children to be watching, and particularly to be performing. Then we need to ask, and Thomas got into this issue, what kind of person watches shit like this? What kind of person watches shit like this? Because it's a late night show. It starts at 9:30. Why would you want to... why would I, as an adult, a 47-year-old gay adult man, want to watch shit like this? Answer, I don't. I was watching T.G. Carr a little bit with my parents, but... I won't have RTE on now. It's always switched over to T.G. Carr. Always, always, always switched over to T.G. Carr. If I'm in the room. Because there's always something good in T.G. Carr. It's like Channel 4 in the old days. And there's always something interesting on Channel 4. And there's now always something kind of interesting or watchable on T.G. Carr. Thomas talks about the type of adults who would... They buy pyjamas. Yeah, they buy pyjamas and they sit on their couch watching the toy show. They must be awful sad fuckers. They must be awful sad fuckers to do that. There were some NPCs up in Howth and I was having coffee this morning. I'll buy a cup of coffee and I stand around just to get out of the house, and I buy a second one which I take home. Oh yeah, we're watching the toy show. Blah blah blah. And this and that. All kind of late 30s people. Yummy mummies and, biker dads. I don't mean leather biker dads. I mean dads on the cycles. They would not be DILFs. By no means would they be DILFs. But these were... I was listening to them talking about the toy show, and it's fucking cringe to listen to this shit. It was fucking cringe. Oh, please. It was fucking embarrassing to listen to these adults in their late 30s, perhaps early 40s, talking about watching the toy show. Are you a pedo? Why are you watching a show that... then this actually leads us into what the show is targeted at. Who is this show intended for? Because it's late at night. Is it for adults? No. No normal adult would want to watch shit like that. Is it for children? No, because it's not suitable and it's not shown at daytime. So what is the aim of this fucking thing? Is this some kind of nostalgic wank trip that these really, really sad normie NPCs sit and watch? Thomas talks about, how the Late Late Show is this bastion, this kind of dipstick into a look at normality, at normies in Ireland. It really is. Who watches this shit? Who would say, oh, well now, I've had a hard day working at home. Used to last year a hard day working in the office. Now a hard day kind of Zoom meetings, which I'm paying for myself. Yes, dear. Let's get out the prosecco. Yeah, the prosecco. And we'll get into our Jimmy Jams, and we'll sit and watch the toy show. Well, there must be shit in between the ears where that people keep their fucking brains. Oh, Jesus. There must be shit between the ears where other people keep their brains. What's wrong with you watching the fucking toy show? The toy. You're gonna, you don't have children. The IVF failed, didn't it? So, you're not going to be able... Who are you buying these fucking toys for? The neighbours' kids? Fuck off. There's so much more shit on telly to watch. There's Channel 4. There's TG Cahir. There's... Could switch it off and just sit and talk. But you see, this is, Thomas talks about the internal monologue. These are the people who punctuate every phrase and sentence with gales of empty laughter. You hear it when they're talking. Every phrase ends with a laugh. And it's because there's no internal monologue. Switch the telly off, switch the music off, make them sit on their own. Make them talk alone. There's nothing to say. The marriage would probably fail. The marriage would probably... these are people who are now of my own... I'm 47, and these would be younger than me, I assume. Slightly, but of the broad generation of me. And they've been overstimulated since they were children. They've never been taught how to think. They've never been taught how to sit in silence. How to just sit with yourself and listen. How to go for a walk on your own. How to sit in the garden on your own without a phone in front of you. Without the radio or the telly. Without other people talking shite and drinking Prosecco. How do you deal with it? The lack of an internal monologue is become, and that manifests itself in the fact that they watch shite like the Late Show. But it also manifests itself when you get a group of them together, how they're always filling the conversation with stupid, inane remarks punctuated by loud, empty laughter. It's more a middle class thing. You don't really hear it with working class people. And I remember when I was teaching, I always preferred teaching in working class schools because the kids in working class schools were streetwise. They have to be. They weren't racist either. There were kids from different races in the working class schools, and they all had their own stories which they would share. I noticed that at teaching in rougher working class schools, both boys and girls. They aren't right. Those kids, the Dublin Irish kids weren't racist. They didn't care that much. This is, again, the racism thing is a narrative being foisted upon. It's only really become aggressive this year by the Irish Times, by RTE and by the NGOs. That's another video, how we need to destroy this NGO lobby in Ireland. But my own focus this year has been on the mainstream media. That's remaining my focus. I can only do so much. And... if you lose focus, well, that's what the people who are running this whole disgusting narrative at the moment want you to do. They want to confuse you, they want to baffle you, they want to demoralise you, they want to make you think that you're helpless, and they want to make you think there's nothing you can do. The way you deal with people like that, and I experienced them from my teenage years when I was in school. My school was a psychopathic control grid. I benefited from that, although I hated the place. The way that you deal with this is you stay focused on one thing. My focus is the mainstream media and what's wrong with it. Primarily RTE. TG Cahir is not in my focus. Not in my focus. The RTE and the Irish Times. That's what's wrong with our mainstream media. You stay focused on that. So the toy show is just part of a much greater cancer and a much greater malaise that all of these things are suffering from. Thomas talks about the cheese brains and this large slice of society. They're actually, I think the sheep analogy is a correct one. We have mendacious politicians at the moment who are committed to harming us. Our Irish politicians are puppets small puppets in a much bigger global agenda. They think that they're powerful. They're not. But the way that we should be dealing with that is having a rigorous, independent mainstream media who are asking them the awkward questions that they don't want asked. Instead, we have a mainstream media, primarily RTE, Virgin Media and the Irish Times, who just allow them to say whatever they want to, and then they reproduce it as if it's proven fact. That's the enemy. The politicians will always be the politicians. You cannot blame a pig for grunting. But the enemy is the fact that that cheese brain part of our population, the same people who think the Late Late Show is shit hot and the Toy Show in their fucking Jimmy Jams drinking Prosecco, they're the ones who, they'll never make their own minds up for themselves, but as Thomas says, they're now getting fed up. They're realising what we all said in March, that times are not going to be getting any better, but probably a shitload worse for them. And they're confused, and they don't know what to do, and they're the ones who are being herded by the mainstream media. And that's why we've got to attack and continue to attack the mainstream media the way we have been. When RTE is coming out with these "Oh, the Truth Matter" ads, that means we're winning. It doesn't mean we're losing. And here I am sitting at home in a microphone, and here's Thomas in the car on his iPhone, and we're all amateurs. The most professional one of us is Dave Cullen. He has a really high standard of material. Jesus, I just sit here and talk impromptu, extempore into a microphone. But we're winning. We are beating them. They don't want to admit that. Now we're the far right. Look at the far right. But the fact of the matter is that even the fact that we're now referred to as the anti-maskers, it has given us an identity. The anti-maskers. So previously, at the start of the mask bullshit in August, I wondered how that would pan out. But very quickly, because the mainstream media took the bait, we became the anti-maskers. So I just said to somebody, I'm an anti-masker. If anybody was to challenge me, and they haven't since the start of August. Ties into something else. We saw a hairdresser in Yorkshire who has had her business closed and is facing a fine of about £27,000 sterling. That would be well over €30,000. And the reason why is because she didn't box clever. Thomas said that she should have shut up and dealt with shut up business, shut her mouth as well actually, and dealt with her customers in a surreptitious way. Absolutely. She was in a stickier position than somebody like me. I just wrote to the Gardaí in August. I told them I'm not going to wear a mask. Here's the reason why I'm not going to wear a mask, and I've copied this letter to the local shops, and if I'm arrested there's a solicitor, and I've left it at that. I didn't try Magna Carta or that. Nobody's given me any trouble. But I don't go around lecturing people either. People have to make their own minds up about this shit. It's not my job to lecture people. I'm not a solicitor. I'm not giving legal advice to people. I'll just mind my own business. But I'm not going to wear a mask. And there you have it. But this hairdresser fell in with the free men, or the common law people, or the correct technical term is pseudo-lawyers. They use pseudo-law. And I mean, she was a stupid woman to do that. I'm afraid she was stupid. There's no other way to put it. That was a stupid thing to do. And then when she got into trouble, she behaved stupidly again. Well, that's it. You can't get inside another person's head. And anybody who wants to come on my social media and say, you should do the research about common law. You've a closed mind. No, just fuck off my social media. I'll block you. They're smug also, these common law cunts, as well as being illiterate and stupid. They are actually normies. It's the same thing that's going on there with them. They're just normies on a different plane. But they are normies. Nah, come on with your common law shit, your pseudo law, free man in the land stuff. Do the research! My friend, do the research! Nah, fuck off. I'm not monetized, I don't need to put up with your fucking crap.